totality of the notes, the fact that the jury has deliberated currently at 17 hours and 58 minutes, and based on the fact that the court has read the Allen charge, the court on its own motion at this time is declaring a mistrial based on the fact that it's manifestly necessary.
What was it that made you think that, without a doubt, he was guilty?
Well, there were several things. One, when he said that he saw someone running down the stairs, it was clearly made up. It was dark. He said he was African American wearing a mask. Well, it was dark. And if it truly was your brother, Josh, wouldn't you recognize his physique? I could tell you any one of these people here running away because I've watched them for 3 weeks now. I know how they walk. And so I could, whether their feet turn out, their feet turn in, whatever, I would have known. And he would have known that was his brother. So that's clearly made up. And then from that time, someone running down the stairs, they were going to stop, put the gun down, open the kitchen drawers, write a note, and then leave while he's making a 911 call. No, they would have hightailed it out of there. And there was, no one heard, not the door, but the garage door. No one heard that going up and down?
You can feel it too when you're in a townhouse, because the garage door's underneath you, so you can basically feel the vibrations of the floor when the garage door's looking down, so no one talks about that.
Can you tell us what it was like to be in the room, the deliberations, and what that sort of, we heard it was 6-6 and then it was 8-4. Can you tell us sort of about how it started and how it progressed?
I feel like everyone was more so focused on the defense's distractions, how I want to put it, as far as Josh being a factor and the garage door and having some sort of access from outside people. So I felt there was so much attention on those factors that everyone just wasn't focusing on the actual facts. And they were just creating their own scenarios to where eventually more people were like, oh, okay, I can see why you would have reasonable doubt. And that's where it went from 6-6 to 8-4. And I'm in my position, I'm still trying to, even at that point, I'm going back and forth like, okay, well, am I missing something? So I think it was just a bunch of back and forth and confusing each other. Because at one point, everyone said, oh, we know he did it. We know he's not innocent, but we still have doubt. So I think it was just a bunch of confusion and people overthinking it and not really wanting to accept it for what it is.
What is it? I was just saying, what is it like though when you have those moments of like, you were so adamant that he was guilty, and is there, you're trying to convince each other? Like, how do you work through that?
Well, there's a moment where you feel like, okay, well, should I just agree with y'all? Like, am I the one that's not looking at it y'all's perspective? So you kind of toggle back and forth with yourself, and it just gets to the point where I just kind of lost hope. I didn't want to keep arguing and trying to prove. It's like, okay, well, I just...
How frustrating was that for you? You were shaking your head when she said, what you wanted to say something.
If the three of us had been in there with her,
yeah, I needed some help.
It would have been different.
Yeah, it's like I got to the point where just minds were being changed just because everyone has their own scenarios or assumptions of what could have happened based off the Josh factor and the fact that they testified to the garage door and having some sort of access while the house was still armed. So everyone's main focus was on that as far as there possibly being another situation that could have happened.
How frustrating is that for you?
I don't know.
To what end did you try to convince the others? What was your truth of what happened?
I don't know, because it just got to the point where I couldn't even talk anymore. Everyone kind of had their mind made up, but it was very frustrating to hear everyone say, and I mean everyone say, we know he's not innocent, but we still have doubt.
Is there
I don't know.
Sorry, is there any one piece of evidence, or is it just sort of the totality that made you say he's guilty, he did this?
I would say seeing just the text messages from Dawn, the mom, and the parents, getting kind of a characteristic feel of who they were as people. I don't see them going to sleep not knowing that their home is secure. So to me, the house was secure, so I don't see, there's no physical damage, I'm sorry,
You're good.
of intruders, or it just, I mean, the murder is still in the house, is pretty obvious to me. And then I feel like the note was just a distraction to make you think it was from someone else.
Were
Was
people
it
stuck-
6-6 when you first started, or was there a different rate that was all started at 6-6?
So when we first started our votes, we decided we're gonna do who thinks guilty, who's still kind of undecided, and who thinks not guilty. So we were all, I don't remember the exact votes on that, but then it got down to the point where we're like, okay, we'll take out the undecided, and we'll just do who we think is guilty, who we think is not guilty. So that's when it was the 6-6. We started deliberating some more. People gave their, perception of why they think a certain way. So that's when we got 2 more that were like, okay, well, maybe it's not all the way proven because this and this and this is missing. So just a lot of back and forth, but I just feel like that came from the defense moving the distraction towards other parts to where the jury kept focusing on other possible scenarios.
Did anyone think that Josh was the real killer? You're shaking your head. You definitely didn't.
Absolutely not,
That was
yeah,
a- it
absolutely
was-
not. That was just a distraction that the
Exactly,
that the
just as
defense
Shakana
lawyers
said.
put
I didn't know
out
if
there.
anyone latched on to that.
Yeah,
Well, we weren't in that room, but, yeah, we weren't in that room, but the 3 of us, never even thought that, never even thought that.
Did anyone in the room with you talk about that?
I don't recall anyone saying that they think, oh, okay, Josh is a specific person. Yes, we all kind of kept him in mind as a possible suspect, but I don't recalling anyone saying like, oh, I'm for sure it's Josh. So, it was just kept bringing him up because he was mentioned in the first place. So again, I think it was just used as a distraction, and it worked because everyone was so focused on, well, what if Josh this, and was he really with his girlfriend, and it's just a distraction in my opinion.
And the
How
other
heated did it get in the room with everyone? Were people emotional with each other, abrasive at all?
Yeah, it got out of hand a few times. I had one person that was kind of the mediator. It was like, okay, guys, let's just take a break. Let's not talk about it for a few minutes. Give each other some time to get some mental clarity, and we'll get back to it. So yeah, it definitely got to some points where people were disagreeing. They didn't want to be open-minded and see a different side, and it got very heated and emotional for sure.
The 3 others who thought AJ is guilty, are they 3 men, women?
2 women and 2 men.
And it was 8-4, not guilty to guilty?
Yes.
There were some very strong personalities in that jury room.
What do you mean by that?
There was a particular one person, a very strong personality. And I think that person probably swayed a lot of people towards their opinion. Some of the people who weren't as strong, and they swayed them.
A man?
I'm not saying.
Do you think that the person who killed Donna and Antonio Armstrong is out there now? Like, it's without a doubt that he is.
AJ.
It is
It's
AJ.
AJ. It's
Yeah.
AJ. It's AJ.
Is that pretty scary?
Yeah, because, I mean, if he could do that to his own parents, what's going to be the next trigger? What would be the
What's
next trigger?
stopping him?
Yeah, what's going to stop him? What's going to be the next trigger? Will there be a weapon available for him? What's the next trigger?
Do you think they should retry this case?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Forgive me, for the folks that were on the not guilty side, was there one piece of evidence that they were really hung up on, or was it just kind of a collection of different things?
Yes, they just kept going back to the alarm system and how there was a testimony on how it may have not been fully functioning. So that was their main focus on, like, how can we really rely on the alarm records if there was a testify that it wasn't really functioning fully. So that was their main focus.
And what
as
was
far
your
as-
answer to that? Because you felt so strongly that he was guilty.
I have the alarm records. I even actually accidentally wrote on a sheet of paper, I was like, when did the killer leave? Because it showed, the time that the residence was armed. And then the next activity was upstairs. And then, all within that time frame. So I was just, it's like, when did the killer leave? But it's just, yeah.
What was it like when you finally got that box of evidence coming back to you guys? I think you guys requested the text messages, but you got everything except the gun. What was it like for you guys going through that?
For me, it was kind of frustrating because I just felt like it was just giving us more to to detour away from what was actually already pretty clear. So I just felt like it was just more to kind of poke at and be like, oh, well, this could have happened, or I just felt like it was too much. Like it was more of a distraction, in my opinion.
Do you think that you should not have been given all the evidence?
Possibly, because then there was just so much focus on other things, like as far as, oh, well, he was texting his girlfriend a few hours before, and there was just focus on all these other little details that, irrelevant, yes.
Did anyone look at AJ through the whole trial and say, like, he couldn't be a killer? He didn't look like a killer. Like, was there any talk of that?
No, not
Okay.
outwardly, but I think we all may have thought it, you know, like, we don't want to believe it, but it's true. It's pretty obvious what the truth is here, so.
No, I never heard anybody say, he doesn't look like a killer, he looks like a nice young man.
Yeah,
Never heard that, never heard that.
Again, I did hear everyone say, we believe he did it, but we have doubt, so.
At the end of the day, though, you know, 2 people are dead, and now in a lot of ways, there's not justice for them. That's what you're saying. How do you leave and wrap your minds around that?
Well, I did have a little emotional breakdown, but being here now, being able to speak to the media and, you know, gives me a little more, I guess, comfort that something, you know, justice will be served, so.
We gave her hugs.
Hugs, yeah.
You guys have anything else you want to, I mean, I know you were alternates, but your thoughts on that?
I mean, you know, we were not supposed to talk about it when we're alternates, but, you know, when we get in there and we look at each other all dead in the eye, we all know what each other thinks, and we all know that there's nothing that was going to change our mind. There was just too many things that didn't make sense, that added up, you know, from the 911 call, that was the big one. You know, you hear a door creak opened. My fellow alternate also wrote that down in her notes, and we talked to each other about it, but I never had anybody else mention that. And then if there was a masked man that they, you know, mentioned later on in that interview, why was there no concern for going down the stairs? Why was there no concern for, oh, well, what if he's still in the house?
Yeah.
Why? There was no concern like, oh, are you sure it's okay? Are you sure it's safe for me to go down there? None of that.
It's just to sum it up, it's over now. You know, after 18 hours of deliberation and weeks of trial, just how are you feeling right now that it's over?
Kind of sad, because it kind of feels like it was all for nothing. So just a little sad, yeah. Starting still emotional.
Thank you guys for talking.
Thank you.
We were scared. Us alternates, we're very scared because, you know, we've sat with this.
Had our, you know, verdict already, and just hoping that what we wanted would be the outcome. Because even if we weren't in there able to deliberate, and if we got the outcome that we didn't want, it would still haunt us for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, we just prayed that they didn't come back with not guilty. Yeah, that would have been our worst nightmare.